So, hey, Mike.
Yes, sir.
Welcome back to the show. Welcome me back to the show. We have
Well,
a special
yeah.
guest today, Terry Hayes,
Who it
the
is?
author
Mr.
of
Hayes.
The Year of the Locust.
Oh,
Welcome,
look at
sir.
that.
Thank
Welcome,
you.
welcome, welcome. I'm going to
Yeah.
raise a glass to you. I'm probably going to be the only one drinking tonight. That's okay. Mike
Yes.
is Mike is getting over COVID, and Terry,
Woo!
you're dialing in all the way from Portugal tonight.
Yes, where it's quite late at night. So I will be relaxing as soon as we've done this and then getting to bed. So no drinking from me.
Wow, nice.
Yeah, I'm gonna. Hopefully, I don't drink myself into bed, but
Right.
With me the first time.
It wouldn't be the first time. Let's talk about the book, Terry.
Yes.
Can you give us a non-denied access area briefing of what readers and Terry Hayes fans alike can expect in your much anticipated novel, The Year of the Locust?
Yeah, it's as you mentioned, it's about a denied access area spy who are really at the spear point of the intelligence world. They go into areas where, it is totally forbidden. Places like North Korea or Yemen or Iran, or if I was writing it today, you'd be going into Gaza, I guess. And that so the design criteria of the book was to make it far more harrowing and put him in far greater jeopardy than my earlier book, Am Pilgrim, which is more of an intellectual exercise in catching a terrorist. So this was, I decided, well, it's going to be very, very tough for him. He's going to always be in danger. Every few pages, something dreadful is going to happen to him. And I sort of think I achieved that.
Yeah.
It's a journey. It's a journey about, which is very common in these novels, about, saving the world from some terrible event. And yeah, I don't think I'm giving away any spoilers to say that he succeeds. But it's how you do it. It's the nature of the threat and how accomplished or unaccomplished you are in taking the audience on what's a 270,000 word journey. And it's epic. And hey, what can I say? They're the sort of books I like to read. So I wrote one. Exactly. Yeah.
That's epic.
A lot of pages. And, people say to me, they say, oh, it didn't need to be that long. Hey, listen, guys, I have read books of 100 pages that felt like it was 10,000. And I've read books that are, James Clavell, Shogun,
right.
900 pages, and it felt like you've finished it in an hour.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. King Rat, great stuff.
Yeah. Mark Twain read the Mormon Book of Faith, their version of the Bible, and he was asked afterwards, well, what was it like? He said, well, it's chloroform in print. And that is to be avoided at all costs.
Don't write the boring stuff. And you didn't. And that's because I think because your career started in journalism and screenwriting. So I wonder, how's your background in those fields influenced? How did it influence your approach to writing novels, and in particular, this novel?
Well, when you're a journalist, you have to work under a tight deadline. So I wasn't paying attention that day. I was goofing off at the back of the class. No, it taught me the value of research. I learned, I was I was a foreign correspondent in New York, then I was an investigative reporter, then I was a political correspondent. And so out of all of that, I learned a lot about the world and how politics works, but I also learned how to research. And this was the days before the internet. I mean, this was going in the library and digging down and interviewing people and going deeper and deeper and deeper. And I'd always seen myself as a relatively serious journalist. Yeah. So that was very useful. Screenwriting teaches you to visualize things, to imagine it to a pretty high order, and then try to convey that on the written page. But when you're making a movie, if it's really a bad movie, well, there's plenty of people you can blame. It's the actor's fault. It was the director. Yeah. The music was crap. It's this. It's that. It's the other. When you're writing a novel, well, it's pretty lonely out there, you know. It's
all
just
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All you. You know, as I was reading the story, I marveled at, you were talking about research, and I was marveled at how it reads as if you were in the business, the spy business, your entire life. And you know, I'm always amazed when I talk to authors, and we've talked to a bunch of authors who aren't in law enforcement, didn't spend, you know, some dudes spend a 20-year career in the CIA or NSA, and yet you haven't, and you've pulled this off, and it reads so authentic, as if you were part of that agent's, part of that bureaucratic process.
Well, thank you. That's the highest compliment you can get. You know, that the trick really is. This is my version of the trick. Everybody's got a different version, you know. So take this with a grain of salt. But I figure you tell a million small truths in order to make the reader believe the one big lie. So there's the small truths are, you know, there's this many, you know, shots in the magazine of this type of gun, because there's going to be all these people out there with Google open. So what a moron. You know, you've got, at one stage in the book, it mentions the shortest barreled rifle available in the world, and it gives its dimensions. Well, you know, you got to get that stuff right. You've got to get all of this stuff right, or as much as you possibly can, in order that the audience or the reader will believe that there really is a spy codenamed Kane, and he really is crossing the border into Iran, and he really does have a GPS tracking device in the telescopic sight on this battered old AK-47 he's got. Now, if I could invent that tracking device, that GPS device that would tell you exactly where you are and no matter what landscape, well, I wouldn't be writing novels, would I? I'd be lying on the beach somewhere cashing
the defense contract.
Yeah. But if I have done my job correctly, people read it and say, oh, yeah, AK-47, yeah, okay, it's good. Wow, the CIA is clever. Look at what they can do. Wow. And so that's the trick, to know, you know, it's like poker. Know when to hold and when to fold them, you know when to lie and when to tell the truth. And, you know, the great thing about the CIA, the really great thing about it is you can say whatever you like about it. Because if they deny it, everybody says, oh, well, that's got to be true. Oh, that's for sure. He got that bit right. If they say yes, everybody says, God, that Terry's smart. Oh, yeah.
It's got the inside track.
My kids, when they read Pilgrim, they said, did you ever? Yeah, I've had many careers. My mother always used to say, Terry's problem is he can't hold a job, you know? And maybe she was right. The kids said to me, were you ever a spy, Dad? I said, oh, come on, kids, come on. The Russians would get me. They'd give me back after 3 weeks because I wouldn't stop talking. They'd say, no, mercy, take him back, please. And the Australians or the US government would be saying, no prisoners swap for him.
Give him to the Portuguese.
Yeah.
They did.
Well, Terry, when you're traveling and you're doing research, you know, it's pretty obvious you did some of that. What aspects of the locations are you looking at? Are you looking at, do you focus in on like the architecture and the structures and the layouts of the cities? Are you looking at the people that make up the communities? What do you typically hone in on any particular area when you're doing research? Whereas, you know, we've talked to other authors who, you know, somebody will say, well, I go to the military bases and I check out this, or I look at this and that and the other. What do you tend to hone in on any particular area when you actually go out and specifically doing research?
It's a great question, because it makes me articulate how I do it. What I'm always looking for is the telling detail, the really telling detail. So you're looking for something that characterizes a person or a place in a way that people haven't experienced before.
Mm-hmm.
if I was writing in 1840 and I went on a grand tour of Europe, I'd end up in Venice, and I could write pages and pages and pages about Venice because nobody'd been there. What? These canals, my God, palaces, gondolas, this is incredible. Yeah, everybody's seen Venice, not only because they might have been there, but because they've watched YouTube or they've watched endless movies. They know everything. They think they know everything about Venice. So I have to say, here we are in Venice, and here's something you didn't know. So we go to, I'll give you an example, if I may. We go to a place called Baku, which is the capital of Azerbaijan, and very few people have been there. But it was once the wealthiest city in the world. And I didn't know that.
Yeah.
No idea. And the Rockefellers were there, and the Rothschilds, everybody was there.
Wow.
And this is around the turn of the 19th century. Just before that, and right up until the Russians came, or the Soviets came in and ruined everything.
Communism for you.
Yeah, no sense of fun, that gang.
Look at their buildings. Yeah, no.
Yeah. So Baku has some of the most extraordinary mansions in the world. Now,
Really?
all of these rich people, well, they're all falling into decay now, but all of these rich people, they didn't build a hospital or a university or any of those things. They built an exact replica of that very Baroque casino in Monte Carlo. So you've got the Monte Carlo casino, now you've got its replica in Baku. Why? Because these were big time gamblers, not just in the casino, but on oil, which was what made Baku so rich. Okay. So you're looking for a detail like that. You're sort of saying, well, go to Baku. You'll see the casino like there is in Monte Carlo. You'll see extraordinary houses that the Soviets turned into, one house turned into 60 Soviet housing units, all falling into disrepair. But, so you're trying to make people read the next paragraph, not just because somebody's about to get killed, but because they're learning something. And, what your hope is that some of the readers will go to a dinner party and somebody will say, oh, a friend of mine's just back from Baku. And this person will say, oh, did they see the casino? Did they, and that's, so you're trying to.
Pretty cool.
To kick the air in the balloon.
Yeah.
Every paragraph.
Okay.
And a lot of that is with, as I say, the telling detail. It's not good to say, oh, Baku is located at, this latitude and that longitude. It has a population of this many, and 46% of them are earning this much money a year. Everybody's, oh, yeah, okay, thanks. See ya.
Someone just put the mask over my face and I just passed out. What did you say? I'm sorry.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, so conventional publishing has authors churning out a book a year. You slightly bucked the trend a little bit, and waiting 10 years to publish The Year of the Locust. Was that by design?
I wish it had been. No. I was a couple of hundred. I've been a screenwriter, and I had some movies that were made.
Some movies. He's so humble. So humble.
Well, no. A few of them were okay. Some were not. But that wasn't my fault. Honest.
It was either the actors or the director.
No, that's all right.
I got you.
Damn actors.
Yeah. Boy, there was plenty of people to blame. So I got very frustrated with Hollywood, extraordinarily frustrated with Hollywood. So I decided to write a novel. So it was something I'd always wanted to do. I'd been a migrant child. I'd gone to Australia when I was 5, and there were only myself, my brother, mum, and dad. No, there were no siblings. No other siblings. There were no aunts, uncles, grandparents. Nobody. It was just this unit of 4 landing in Australia, which was a very different country then to it is now, and so it was a very difficult childhood. My mother was not a psychologically well woman, and that was a burden for a 5-year-old. So I took quite an amount of escape in reading books and stories. And if I was on the couch, it's pretty obvious, where this came from. And I fell in love with reading. And when you're that age, you go to the local library, you go to the bookstore, and there's tens of thousands of books. So you're a kid, you figure, well, it can't be that hard, can it? Look at all these people that have done it. You just sit down and write it.
Glutton for punishment.
Well, yeah, it shows how stupid I was as a kid. And that, so that sort of got wound into my DNA. Ever since I can remember, I was going to be a writer. That was the only thing I was ever going to do. And my family, my mum and dad and my brother shared that. And I don't think they thought it was very wise, but that was, he's a bit eccentric and it's this and it's that. So anyway, many years passed and I start to write Pilgrim. I'm 200 pages in, too far in to abandon it, not far enough to see the end. And my brother, who was 3 years older than me, arrived at the house unannounced and told me he had cancer. So I asked him what sort of cancer, and I knew enough about some people here, but I knew enough about medical science to know that this was very, very bad. So I said to him, "How long does the doctor say?" And he said, "Well, 6 months to a year." Well, they were right, down the low end. Wow. So I lost my brother. Then about 4 or 5 months later, I had something that I would not wish on anybody. I had to stand in a corridor in a hospital in Sydney and talk to a team of doctors about my father's medical condition. And they said, there's no recovery. There is no recovery. And he is suffering. So, yeah, I gave you
1-2 punch. Yeah.
Sorry?
1-2 punch.
Yeah. So I gave the authority to turn the machines off. It's a dreadful thing to do.
Yep.
Just dreadful. Many a night I wish to myself that they hadn't spoken to me, but they just done it. But they couldn't. And I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Anyway, 6 months later, my mother died. So within the space of a year, I lost the family. And,
wow.
You're not my family. I have 4 children.
No, yeah.
And a wife. But the people who shared that childhood dream were all taken within that year. And I had no choice. I had to keep writing. I can see in the book, were I to read it again, which I don't intend to, but I could see the points where that happened. I remember it that clearly, where each of those events happened. But I had no choice. I just kept going. And maybe that was, therapy. Maybe I was escaping again. I don't know. But I had no choice. I had 4 young children and a family that depended on me.
Right.
So I did that. And then I finished Pilgrim. And it was met with, a significant degree of praise. And it sold, became an international bestseller.
Wonderful. Yeah.
But there was nobody there. They'd never seen. The other 3 had never seen.
They didn't get to enjoy it with you.
Is that a bit of a hollow victory, I guess?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. And of course, I'd never had time to grieve.
Yeah.
I hadn't grieved, you see. So there was nobody there to say, hey, look, it's a book. It's published. It might be terrible.
But that's how we came.
Yeah. But I got there. I did do it.
Yeah.
That was, my wife and my children were not part of that experience of my childhood. So I had a lot of grieving to do. I had a lot of things to process about the success of the book. And, it had been a lifelong ambition to write a book like it.
Yeah.
It's almost bittersweet now hearing that. It seems bittersweet now hearing that. Here, I think when I think of that book, and I think of you, because we had never met before. I think you're popping champagne, and maybe you did, but I think you're popping champagne, and life is great. But then you hear this other side. You never know the journey an individual is going through until you actually sit down and talk with them.
yeah. I mean, I only talk about it because people ask me, why did it take you so long? And that was part of the reason.
Yeah, sure.
It made me examine myself very carefully and my children.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I thought of my own childhood. And I thought, my wife and I are fortunate. We're, in good financial position. And
Yeah.
the movies did that. And I had no need to work in many respects. I have a need within me, but it wasn't like I got to go and punch rivets on the production line,
Yeah.
So I thought about my own kids, and I thought about my own childhood, and I thought, well, there's one thing I can do. I've written a best-selling novel. I've made some reasonable sort of movies. I had a great career as a journalist. I can be the best father I can be. So I never missed a cricket match. I never missed a cricket training session. I never missed a horse riding session. I saw more productions of Aladdin than anybody should ever have to sit through. And I laughed and cheered at all the right places. I've got, 4 really good kids who do not appreciate one thing that their mother and father did for them. But what kid ever does?
Whatever kid does.
That's not how it goes.
It's revealed at 30 years old. That's okay.
Terry, I got to tell you that it's interesting to hear you hear you explain it that way, because Mike and I and Sean, if he were here, have had the exact same experience with our professional careers. How we pause them in some instances, stop them to be the father that you just because it's so important. And never missing with Mike's case. Mike gave up a medical career and he's back into it, but never missing a fencing match. I gave up the Secret Service to be with to be with my children, never missing a basketball game, never missing a play production of a ballet or whatever, never missing those things. It's super important. It's more important than the books, but we do love the books. We do love them.
but you never get that time back.
No.
That's it. That's the terrifying thing. When I talk to other parents who say, well, next year they're going to be a teenager, and you're going to be walking down the street and they'll cross the road. God forbid that you should meet their friends.
Drop me off back there.
Yeah. So it's inescapable.
Yeah.
That you should try your best, because you can always write another book.
Yeah.
You can never bring your children up.
We've talked about it, and this was really our greatest victories in our lives.
Yeah.
The chance and the opportunity to do that. So this was, we get it for sure.
No regrets whatsoever.
Yeah.
No, I don't have one regret about taking 10 years. I don't. There's a lot of authors in the world. J.D. Salinger, Catcher in the Rye, one book.
One book.
Harper Lee, To Kill a Mockingbird, one book. Tolstoy, I don't know how many books, but only Anna Karenina and maybe War and Peace, which I thought was boring. But you don't need that many books. J.R.R. Tolkien wrote 2, The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings trilogy. That was it.
Family's still making money on that.
Still making money, and he stands in the pantheon.
It does,
right? Yeah.
I had to adapt a book for a movie that Billy Friedkin, who directed French Connection and The Exorcist, and died just recently. So Billy was going to direct it, and I was adapting the book, and I had a look at the author of the book, and he'd written 128 books.
Jeez.
I can't remember his name. To this day, I cannot remember his name, because nobody can.
A lot of books. That's a lot of books.
That guy.
The guy that wrote 120 books.
Yeah. So it's, you choose, where you're going to pitch your tent. I pitched my tent in the epic, many, many words, lots of pages, incredible globe-trotting, out there adventure. Yeah. Right. And I've done it. Now, would the publishers be happy? if I wrote a book, yeah, they'd be real happy.
Yeah, sure.
Happy? No.
Yeah.
So what am I? I'm going to put their business interests in front of my personal happiness and my children? I don't think so.
Well, it's turned out okay for them anyway. But well, as you said, this is 787 pages of finished product.
Yes.
When you submitted this, did you have kind of like a little smirk on your face waiting for them to, or did they have a little forewarning knowing that this was coming? Because I can imagine they had meetings kind of off the side saying, should we turn it into a 3-book arc?
Well, you want to hear the horror story? You want to hear the real horror story?
That's what we're here for.
270,000 words in the book. Okay. Down the bottom of my Word document of Locust, it tells you the word count.
Yeah.
How many words you've written?
Yeah.
1,080,000. I threw away 800,000 words.
You could have sent it to us.
Wait. Can you say that number one more time, please?
I threw away 800,000 words.
You threw away 8 books. You're on your way to that 120 book career.
I was there. But you see, the thing is that, near enough's not good enough, in my view.
Yeah, there you go.
And look, I stand in awe of a lot of authors. I really do. Yeah. I mean, they are people who, we spoke of James Clavell, J.R.R. Tolkien, Hemingway, F. Scott, lots and lots of them. And I'd like to be like them. Now, that's doubtful. And, God knows where real talent comes from and all of that. But I do happen to think that the work we do is the rent we pay for our space on Earth. And it's a high rent. Yeah. If you want to be a writer. It's my duty to make it as good as I possibly can. So I write a page. Now I write some more pages. And then I read it through and I think, no, you lost your way there. This is becoming silly, or it's not involving, or it's not believable. So you go back to the last good moment, the moment where you think that's pretty good up to there. Then you push the rest of it down the document and you say, okay, let's have another go. Like Raymond Chandler, a great noir novelist, great writer. Yeah. He said his advice about writing: if in doubt, have a blonde come through the door with a gun. Now, he had no idea why she was coming through the door, who the blonde was, or why she had a gun. It didn't matter, because you read that paragraph, you thought, geez, okay, hold on. Now it's up to him to make it work. So I go back and I say, okay, what can I do now that's going to make people say, whoa, hold on. And then you build that up, and then you build the next up. There is a scene in it, without giving away too much, of a very, very terrible crucifixion in Iran. Now, the thing, most of that came from Mel Gibson. I've known Mel since long before he was famous, and long before he became controversial. And he was making Passion of the Christ.
Yeah,
right.
And he and I were working on something, or just, I don't know, having dinner, I don't know what we were doing. And he said, you know much about crucifixions, Terry? I said, well, there was one, and that book sold really well.
It's never been out of print, Terry. Never been out of print.
Never out of print. Wonderful book. He said, yeah, but do you know about what it's like? And I said, no, I don't really. And he explained to me in graphic and stomach-churning detail that it is not execution. It's actually death by torture.
Yeah,
right.
And that. So I learned a lot about crucifixion. So it came the time in Locust try and have a good crucifixion. But that in itself's not enough. You can describe that till the cows come home. You've got to put the family in there of the crucified man. You've got to describe what the wind is like, the sun. You've got to have these two children that are chained there. You've got to have the bad guys give them some water, because you'll die of dehydration in 24, 30 hours maybe. So you want to keep hydrated so that they die of starvation. And that can take days, weeks.
Yeah.
And that, so the level of cruelty becomes exponential. And that's how you try to build the scene. So I would write crucifixion and describe a crucifixion. And I'd go back and say, yeah, that's okay, but it can be better. So I start to build it up. Now I add another brick to the wall and another brick to the wall and a few more bricks to the wall. And I keep going until I get to a point where I say, that is okay. Then I read it through. Then I launch on. And then I write another, 5 pages, 10 pages, 3 chapters, 50 pages. And I read it through and say, it's terrible. It doesn't belong in this building. Chuck it out. Go back. And that's what I do. And somebody, I don't read any of the reviews. I don't. I got 4 kids that can tell me I'm an idiot. I don't need people on Amazon or Goodreads doing that. But somebody did draw my attention to somebody who'd said, I'm never going to buy another one of his books. This is before Locust came out. I'm never going to buy another one of his books. He's broken all trust with the readership, because why does it take him so long? Okay. Well, I had mine, which I've shared with you, my reasons for that. And so I found it a particularly thoughtless and cruel thing to say, but all right, people are entitled to their opinion. But I got sort of more annoyed about it because I hadn't broken trust with the readership. I would have broken trust with the readership had I dashed it off in 6 months.
Yeah.
My problem was I respect authors and readers and books too much. Well, you can never respect them too much, but I respect them enormously. And whatever talent I was given is nothing compared to the diligence which you need to try to do something that is halfway any good. And that, so I took the time I did, and maybe it was worth it, maybe it wasn't. I don't care. I like the book. I'm proud of the book. And, it's part of my life, and a good part of my life.
So Tara, people sometimes ask me, like, oh, you're a writer. Like, who do you write for? I write for myself. I write the stories that I want to read at the end of the day. But as a storyteller, like, how do you navigate? It's kind of a delicate balance between delivering on readers' expectations from the first book and introducing fresh and unexpected elements in this book.
Yeah, I think anybody can write for art. I really do. I think it's called a diary, and I think people are fully entitled to keep a diary of their thoughts and their emotions and that. And if you're a relatively good craftsman and wordsmith, you can get that published, and people seem to like that in small numbers. And then there are plenty of people who write for commerce. They come up with what they think's a hot idea, and they blast it out, and it goes out there, and without casting aspersions on anybody, but 50 Shades of Grey, I don't think is ever going to win the Pulitzer Prize for literature.
It made so much money.
So you can do it for commerce or you can do it for art, but there is a place that's very, very dangerous to inhabit, and that's where commerce meets art. And my definition of that is I'm doing it for myself because that's art, but I've always got to have an eye on, will that be able to be communicated to a wider audience? So I try to keep all of us happy. Me, my notional readers, everybody. I'm trying to stand with the campfire, off to one side and 500 people in front of me. And I want them to be spellbound. And I know that if I turn and look up and they're all calling to other people outside the cave, come on in, come on in, come and listen to this, I know I'm doing something right.
Mm-hmm.
If, however, I turn around and there's only 2 people left and both of them are asleep, I think that hasn't been so successful. So we might need to rethink this. So yeah, it's a very difficult thing, but hey, I'm not going to write anything that I'm not happy with. I couldn't physically do it. I couldn't get up in the morning and think, oh, well, who gives a damn? I don't want to do that. I want to think that, at least to me, I want to think, oh, this is pretty good, and hopefully other people agree. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Let's have an argument. Let's have a discussion. Look, it's not cancer research, and I haven't invaded Ukraine.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a story, and hopefully it works for everybody.
Yeah.
Well, that's on me. That's my fault.
When for myself, I know for Chris and some of the other folks that we know that are authors, there's usually something or more than one thing that you kind of discover about where you thought the story was going or what was going to happen in kind of an accidental way. It revealed itself either through your subconsciousness or whatever. Was there anything with Year of the Locust that maybe changed what the readers are going to read where you thought it was going, and something magical or something accidental happened that took that new direction?
No, well, I know what you're referring to.
Yeah.
I do. Yes, there's a giant twist in it.
Yeah.
I thought it was great.
Uh-huh.
I thought, look, it's a very difficult area. Books are very conservative. They come from a long history, not so much in America, but especially in Britain. We go back to Jane Austen, we go back to Wuthering Heights, we go that, and there's been a long tradition of narrative storytelling.
Right.
And that's great. And, I'm certainly a fan of that. But young people today do not learn about narrative storytelling from those antecedents. They generally learn about it from movies, streaming, TV, and God help us, TikTok.
Oh my gosh, it's so funny you mentioned that. But go on.
So you're dealing with a different audience.
Yeah.
People that buy books are overwhelmingly not young.
No, they're us. They're us.
Yeah. And we've got to pick up people who are younger, because reading and writing is such a wonderful thing to enjoy, whether you're doing it as a job or whether you're doing it, buying books on the weekend. It has to change.
I got to tell you though, Terry, so I have younger children. I have a 14-year-old and a soon to be 13-year-old. And the 13-year-old, my daughter, she loves manga, which is so she watches it's like Japanese anime on YouTube.
My
It
kids
streams
into
on
that too.
Netflix.
Yeah.
So she watches it, and then she wants more, and she'll go to the bookstore with me, and she'll specifically seek that out, and she'll find stories that she watches the shows, and she'll look for the books, and she's looking for the graphic novels though, not the chapter books as they like to call them, but the graphic novels, which is interesting.
Yeah. Well, because she's learned a different form of narrative storytelling.
Yeah.
My parents wouldn't have known manga from a hole in the ground.
I wouldn't either. Till her either.
Exactly. So they're seeing things in movies that are taking huge narrative leaps. Now, I don't know if you've seen the movie Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
But Oppenheimer does not follow a strict narrative style or sequence. It's jumbled, it's mixed up. He keeps you on edge all the time. He keeps you saying all the time, well, what's happening now? What's this? If you ever saw the first season of True Detective, which I still don't understand. I still do not understand it. Should I meet Woody?
It was great though. I loved it.
I know Matthew McConaughey. I didn't know Matthew. I know, ask him, what did it mean? Can you explain this to me? But the truth is, I didn't care. I got a sense of what it was all about, and it pushed through all the time. I had such confidence in the storytellers and the actors. Okay, that's today. That's what we're dealing with today.
Yeah.
Ridley Scott, who is truly a brilliant director, makes Napoleon, and it's got some incredible scenes in it, but it's a very conventional narrative. It doesn't do a fraction of the business Oppenheimer does, because you're ahead of Napoleon. You're ahead of the story. Whereas with Oppenheimer, you're having to think, you're having to put it all together. And that, so when we're talking about books, especially books that are looking for a large commercial, audience and that, then I think you have to start trying to push the envelope. Because if you don't push the envelope, I'm doing Day of the Jackal all over again. And,
why not?
Yeah, but it's 50 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, Ray Charles, when Billy Joel was breaking really big with Piano Man, he met Ray Charles, and Ray Charles said to him, listen, I'm going to give you one piece of advice. And Billy Joel said, what's that? He said, make sure the music you're playing now, you absolutely love. And Billy Joel said, why? And Ray Charles said, because you're going to be playing it for the rest of your life. And I do not want to be the Bee Gees tribute band. I don't. I want to be Terry's own version, making mistakes, taking risks, doing that. But we have to. If we don't try to reinvent things, look, what would we be doing? We'd all be going into church looking at the 1 millionth version of Madonna with Child. Now, I reckon there's been 800,000 done anyway, and I've seen a good number of them. Or you can walk into somewhere and have a look at Picasso. And say, oh my God.
And break the mold, right?
Yeah. So you've got to push out there. And it's dangerous. It's difficult. And mostly people get it wrong. But so what? We learn something along the way.
Yeah,
so
sure.
That was my incentive. If I can't keep it interesting for me, I don't think it's going to be very interesting for anybody else.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Well, Terry, so we've interviewed other TV, commercial, movie producers. They're all storytellers like yourself, and they universally describe the joy and freedom of writing novels because of breaking free of the limits of those mediums placed on the writer. Yeah, I'm sensing you experienced that as well.
Oh yeah. I mean, look, if Chris Nolan, who I think is truly a brilliant man, if Chris Nolan wasn't a star director, that movie would never have been made. Because had he submitted that script, the studio would have read 10 pages and said it's incomprehensible. I mean, there was so sure.
That's so frustrating.
I know, right?
So, but people say to me quite frequently, what's your advice about being a writer in Hollywood? Well, it's simple. Don't do it.
So if Sean was here, Sean was also a screenwriter in Hollywood, he would probably say the same thing.
He would say the same thing.
Yeah. Now, that's not to say don't make movies, but go the Oliver Stone route. Go the Chris Nolan route. Be a writer-director. Be your own auteur. Now you've got to hope. When you're just the writer, you're hoping that you form a good relationship with a director who is intelligent and knows a good story. Well, my experience is there's not that many of them. And a lot of them are just shooters, They're great at shooting commercials. But when you get, Steven Spielberg says, making a movie is like skating on thin ice for mile after mile after mile.
Yeah.
And there's not that many people with that skill or that fortitude, that resilience to be able to do it.
Well, we already mentioned this. I took 10 years off from my career, for something more important that I found. And like you and Chris and Sean, what I've since come back in the last 6 months or so, and I barely recognize the business structure that I left behind a decade ago. And I find myself questioning every day, was I left behind, or am I missing something? Or are these people just morons? What do you see different now in well, let's just say publishing? Like, what do you see now in publishing that's changed, that you thought you knew when you brought out your first book?
Yeah, I think it's become a much tougher business. I really do. I think that there's so many demands on people's time, so many alternative ways to get entertainment and all of that. You know, when I was writing Pilgrim, I've got two boys. They're my younger children now. One's 19, the other's 17. But when I was writing Pilgrim, they were right into Xbox until I unplugged it, and it was never plugged back in again. But they were basically first-person shooter games.
Right.
And sometimes you had a car and you got points for killing pedestrians, which I thought was a healthy upbringing, but my wife didn't agree.
It's very American, Terry. That's very American.
Very American. And also, I don't like pedestrians that much unless I'm walking.
Nobody does.
I could sense the frustration.
Yeah, if I'm behind the wheel, they are definitely getting it.
You lived in New York City. Yeah, they're getting run over.
So they were, but fundamentally they were first-person shooter games, and I would watch them play with them sometimes, and I realized the movies were doomed because this was a vastly more intense experience than you got in most movies. And I thought, this is going to be a huge business.
A lot more dopamine thrown into their systems. Yeah.
Oh, way more. And I thought, when they get a handle on one aspect of this, it's going to be really explosive. Well, they're getting a handle on it right now. They're doing away with first-person shooter games, and they're making it much more narratively strong. They're taking you on a narrative journey with a lot of weaponry that you do not have in the movies, and that you certainly don't have in novels. Yeah. So that's been a big, big difference. And I think that the publishing industry is falling farther and farther behind by not trying to push books to the limit more. And so that has been frightening to me. And certainly the sales, I can't say for America so much because I'm not there at the moment, but I will be talking about this when I get there with the publishers. Yeah. But certainly the UK and other territories in Europe, it's harder to sell books. It really is. You know, I think Pilgrim was really a unique thing. That is going to be very, very difficult for anybody to emulate. Of course, you know, blockbusters come along, but they're not what they once were. So yes, I think the business has changed very much. I think writers are going to have to change. I think the publishing industry is going to have to change, or we end up like CDs, you know, or laser discs, you know. Oh well, we've got this cornered. Oh look, we've got these laser discs.
But Terry, I got to tell you that in a way it's funny because it's obsolete, but also in a way it's brilliant because everybody who bought you were talking about the Aladdin, everybody who bought Disney's Aladdin on VCR then had to buy it on DVD or whatever, and then they had to buy it on Apple Plus, Disney streaming, whatever. So they got you 3 times.
Well, yeah, yes, they do, but each time it declines. Each time. And of course, whilst they were all looking at the new, how can we exploit Aladdin? The back door was open, and in came the streamers.
Oh, right.
And suddenly, the studios don't have a business anymore.
They don't.
Because their business was built on DVDs.
Right.
And now, you know, look, the record industry and the movies especially spent years fighting piracy, online piracy. Right. Books never did. Books had a relationship with the readers, where the readers knew that they had to support the format. And so books went into electronic downloads, basically the Kindle, without having a war. what do the movies do? Sticks things up on front of every movie saying the FBI is going to come and get you.
Oh, right, right.
If you illegally download this, we're going to get you. And they took people to court, and they thought they could win in public opinion that way. Everybody's thinking, you've overcharged us 3 times for a lap.
Find me one person who hasn't walked around Chinatown in any city and purchased a $5 copy of whatever movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe not now, but back in the day.
But they broke all trust.
Yeah.
Because the popcorn cost too much. The tickets were too much.
Gosh.
The movies were often not good. I mean, if we go back a long way, you'd get an A feature and a B feature. You get 2 movies and you'd sit in there and nobody'd expect the B feature to be that or the B film to be that good. It was entertaining. Now you go along and it's expensive to go to the movies.
Oh, Terry, I don't know the last time you went to the movies here in the States, but we took my family of 4, and the tickets were nearly $100. And then the concessions were nearly 100. Like, it was outrageous. It was outrageous for an hour and a half where I find myself falling asleep in the middle of every movie now. I don't know if it's an age thing or just the movie's not entertaining or whatever it is, or it's dark and it's the only time Daddy actually gets time to take a nap.
That's right. Starts cuddling up to his wife, and she's in the movies just because it's dark.
Left his coat on.
Right. But yeah, it's outrageous, and I see a little bit of that in the publishing industry too. When people go to buy to buy a hardcover, and it's $35 when you can just buy the ebook for $1.99, or if you're Kindle Unlimited, you get it for free. Basically, you pay the subscription, but you get it for free. So yeah, the landscape does change.
With the hardback, you can gift it to somebody, or you can pass it on to other family members.
Yeah.
When you paid $100 for a family of 4 to go to the movies, that's it.
Yeah, yeah.
And people often say to me, "Oh, you don't see many walkouts in movies now." I said, "Have you seen the ticket prices?" I'm not walking out. I'm going to sit there. I don't care. Come on, mate.
I love it. I love it. So Terry, when you were stranded away from home when the COVID pandemic hit, you were years from when you had started to write The Year of the Locust, and still several more years away from finishing it. What effect did that sudden and involuntary isolation have on the storyline and your effort to finish it?
Well, it had a huge effect on my family, of course, because I was in Lisbon in Portugal. I'd been in England looking for a house for the family because we thought it'd be an interesting thing for the kids to experience some life in England. But then COVID hit, and I decided to come to Portugal because the weather's better. And I thought, and I'd lived in England before, and I didn't have much confidence that they would handle it very well. I didn't know if the Portuguese would, but I thought at least it's sunny and warm. So I came here, and my wife said to me, I was talking to her on the phone, and she said, "Have you ever been to Lisbon?" I said, "No." She said, "It might be awful." I said, "Well, yeah, it might be." I said, "But there's a Gucci store, and there's a Prada store, and there's a few others, Cartier." I said, "If I draw a circle around them and live within a mile of that, I think I'll be okay." She said, "This is one of the most stupid things I've ever heard." So I live about half a mile from those stores. So it worked. And so
of course it did. Of course it did.
So I came here. And, as you know, Pilgrim's about viruses. So I know a lot about viruses. I know a lot about, recreating viruses. I know a fair amount about epidemics. I'm not saying I'm a scientist, but I do have a better knowledge maybe than the average person. So my wife said, "Well, I don't know. This is a very smart idea." I said, "Listen, don't worry. It's all going to be over in 3 months. I'll have a nice 3-month holiday in Portugal and it'll be all over." So, you can see what an expert I am. But as I did say before, you tell a million small truths to make people believe the one bit. So that was Pilgrim, but I knew something about viruses. We have absolute evidence that I know zip. Anyway, so I came. Then the damned Australian government closed the borders. Now, it was a wonderful decision. It really was. except it wasn't for me. My wife's best friend is married to a very, very senior member of the Australian government at that time. So Krista, my wife, rang her friend and said, listen, can Warwick give us a bit of a hand? We want to leave Australia and go and join poor old Cherry, who's marooned in Lisbon. Warwick said, absolutely no way.
The Hayes name meant nothing.
There is no breaking of the rules for anybody.
Wow.
Tell poor Terry to suck it down. I love Australia. I love it because that was the right thing to do, even though it's inconvenient for us.
Yeah.
And of course, Australia's excuse me, success rate in dealing with the virus was very impressive. So I ended up here, they ended up in Australia, and we didn't see each other for 2.5 years.
Wow.
So that was difficult. Of course, the boys thought it was fantastic. They thought it was great. They referred to me as Adolf. And they thought, well, he's not going to be on our case about schoolwork.
Oh.
They had a 2.5 year. Yeah, we're working really hard, Dad.
Yeah. You can't unplug the Xbox from Portugal, Pop.
That's right. Exactly. So it was very difficult from that point of view. Yeah. And if you're, down in the dumps, it's pretty hard to write.
No shit.
Yeah.
No shit.
Right. All right, Terry.
Yeah.
What can we expect, if anything, from the large or big screen from you in the near future? Anything?
Yeah.
Here we go.
There's a movie coming out in another couple of weeks that I had some involvement in, which I'm not allowed to speak about. No, I'm forbidden to speak about it. I had some involvement in a book that is associated with that movie. So that's coming out, but on pain of death, I'm not allowed to say anything more. I've told you too much already.
All right.
The Am Pilgrim will be made as a movie. The rights at present are with MGM, but they do revert to me at the end of the year. So either MGM had better get on their bike and make it, or if they don't, I think I will.
Thanks for the money, and I'll make it myself.
Yeah. Look, they've had 9 years to do it, but many changes of management.
Yeah.
So that will happen. My preference for Locust is that it goes to streaming. I think the story is suited for that.
That does seem reasonable.
Yeah, and so I'm hoping that I can have Pilgrim out in the movie houses and Locust on streaming. And, that would be a very good combination. I think that will happen. That is definitely the plan.
Beautiful.
Me personally, I'll be writing I Am Pilgrim too. So,
look at that.
Yeah. So I've been contracted to do Pilgrim 2. So I really don't have
another virus I have to catch here in the next few years.
Dude, that's
another virus I'm going to catch.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So have you started already? Are you in the writing process? Have you drafted
Not in the
outline?
writing process, but I'm in the story development process. Yeah.
Some familiar characters, I hope.
Yeah. Well, a lot of look. It's going to be fun because a lot of the characters from Pilgrim come back.
Awesome.
So I know them. I know Death. I know Scott Murdoch or Pilgrim or whatever his damn name is. One of the girls comes back. One of the killers.
Terry, did you find it difficult after writing, spending as much time as you did with Locust to getting back in that voice, getting back in those characters' heads, or is it like meeting up with an old friend again?
Yeah, no, I haven't found it difficult. I was sick of them by the time I'd finished Pilgrim. I mean, I was really sick. The hero in Pilgrim, he makes one brief allusion to the fact that he had sex with somebody, and I'm not even sure that's true. Maybe he made that up. He doesn't drink. He did have a drug problem, but he's overcome that. He doesn't smoke. He doesn't party. He doesn't go to restaurants. He doesn't do anything. He was miserable, misanthropic, emotionally detached. And by the time I'd done 700 pages with him, I was thinking, oh my God, thank goodness I'm shot with you. You go off sunset.
Go get a Vice, damn it.
Yeah. So then I did it very differently with Kane, and by the end of it, I was sick of him and his family. And, I thought, well, I've had enough of you, so I'm quite happy to go back to misanthropic, emotionally detached. No being will ever touch my heart. Pilgrim.
Nice.
I love it. All right, so I'm going to raise a glass, Mike. You can raise your water. Terry, you can raise your water as well. You have completed the traditional portion of our interview about the Year of the Locust.
Right.
And now we're going to go into the lightning round, which is neither lightning or, well, maybe it is a round, where I'm going to ask you 3 questions. Mike's going to ask you 3 questions. They will not be serious questions. They will be all silly questions.
Here we go.
So I'm going to go first. So you have created a TikTok account. You actually mentioned TikTok before, which I thought was hilarious. I do not have a TikTok account. My kids cannot have a TikTok account, but you have a TikTok account. What's your first upload? Is it a cat video or something serious like a discussion on denied access area spies?
Oh, it would definitely be a dog video.
Dog video.
Because the greatest dog trick ever is to have a library of books at home and train your dog by putting a small treat in a hollowed out section of the book. Then when people call around to your house, you just casually say to your dog, oh, Fifi, have you read any good books lately? And Fifi runs over, pulls this volume out of the bookshelf and hands it to you. So that's my TikTok account.
My man has already thought about it.
Don't mind me if I borrow that.
Please do.
So by the way, you go to Terry's, home library, you open up his books and they all have a little bit of peanut butter in them.
Absolutely. The dogs fight each other to get.
It better be a big book if they're picking this.
Yeah. Or a big treat. Yeah.
All right. So, can you give us a guesstimate on how long Pilgrim 2, how many pages it's going to be?
It's going to be big. It's going to be over 500 pages, and it's going to take me 2 years.
There it is.
All right.
Okay. All right. I got last one. You're an Aussie who's lived everywhere. You're currently in Portugal. But the Super Bowl, I think, is pretty much, the world's football. Everybody knows about it. I guess American football.
No.
Well, I'm going to tell you. So it's 2 teams. It's the 49ers, right?
Yeah.
Against the Kansas City Swifties.
Yeah.
Not the Chiefs, the Swifties. Pick one.
Oh, Kansas City.
There you go.
Oh, okay.
Well, I'm going there.
Oh, you are?
I'm not completely stupid. Am I going to say the other team so that people in Kansas City can beat the crap out of me?
There you go.
Yeah, I am a huge Kansas City supporter. I'm massive. So please.
There you go, folks. Terry Hayes has picked Kansas City.
He's even got the tattoo already because he's that confident.
Go drop money on it.
All right.
Go ahead, Mike.
All right. Let's see. Now that you're living in Portugal, we're going to see just how more educated you become of your adoptive home here. True or false? Portugal is the oldest country in Europe.
Yes, true.
That is true.
Yes.
Portugal, right?
Wow, I learned something today.
I did too.
Okay.
True or false?
You want to see the roads here?
They're as old.
Yeah.
Well, the Romans didn't even build them. The Romans thought they were terrible.
The Roman roads, they haven't upgraded them.
No, they predate Rome.
They predate Rome.
I mean, just finding somebody to fix them.
You go to the Mercedes dealership and they've got carts with stone wheels. But apart from that,
Great. Okay, number 2. The oldest bookstore in the world is in Lisbon.
No, false.
That is true.
What?
The world's oldest bookstore is in Lisbon.
Do you have a name? Like, what is it?
I do not know.
Oh, I got to look that up now.
He's making it up.
No,
I think he's lying.
Trying to humiliate
Hey,
me.
He's a liar that lies, Terry. No,
right?
true.
It's
Google
not
said
true.
it. It was on
I
TikTok.
had no idea. I had no idea.
It says it's true. So
All right.
if the internet says it's true, it's true. There's no repudiation of that. All right. Number 3. Lisbon holds the Guinness Book of World Record for the largest bean stew.
Stew. Is that a thing, Terry?
I mean, well, I'm not getting in the elevator with anybody that's eating the largest bean stew. I would say that's false.
It's true. They are listed in the Guinness Book of World Records as hosting the largest bean stew.
How does that enter anybody's brain? Like, hey, you know what? I got an idea, everybody. We're going to get together. We're going to make this big vat of bean stew. Everybody's going to have some, and we're going to lock ourselves in the room.
Oh, yeah.
Terry's going to be asked to be moving from Lisbon here shortly. So,
oh my gosh.
I'm sure you're right. Well, 1 out of 3 isn't very good. I mean, my
yeah,
God.
you know, you got some traveling to do around town there.
Yeah,
So the #1 globally best-selling author of I Am Pilgrim, Terry Hayes, you have finished and completed the crew reviews interview. You have a new book coming out, 10 years in the making, The Year of the Locust. It comes out on February 6th, I think it is, here in the States.
Yeah.
Sir, you are a blast. You are always welcome on this show.
Anytime,
we could talk to you for hours about
for sure.
Anything, everything. But I had a blast talking to you, sir. Cheers to you.
Thank you very much. Cheers to you. Thank you for hosting me. It's been real fun.
Terry.
So thank you.
We love to have you.
We'll see you on the next one, sir.
Right. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Hey, Mike. Look who
Yes.
has showed up for the outro.
Great questions, Sean, by the way. Fantastic.
Thank you for including those.
That interview went like that. It was like I wasn't even here.
Right.
It's amazing. Sean, we did talk about The Year of the Locust with Terry Hayes. God, you missed that fantastic.
This guy's amazing.
This guy, if he takes another 10 years to write the next book, which is Sean, Mike, which is the next book?
I Am Pilgrim Duels.
If he takes 10 years, dude, I'm so reading
So be it.
It's going to be fantastic. But we want to thank David Brown for sending us hard copies.
Thank you, Mr. David. We appreciate it always.
Soft copies.
Ooh, and somewhere in the house.
And I'm going to raise a drink because I was drinking, Mike was drinking water, and Sean
Relax.
should be drinking. You should
Again.
be drinking. Terry Hayes.
Hold up a dry glass.
There you go.
There you go.
Thank you, sir, for coming on the show, Terry. Hopefully it's not 10 years later that you come back. Hopefully it's quicker.
Best of
But-
luck. Good health. That's right.
Hell of a book.
Mm.